Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. You're very welcome to this Marathon Spotlight event, which will take us on a 13-hour journey around the globe. Today, as people around the world are celebrating the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, we are taking the opportunity to celebrate our own fantastic community of women scientists who are leading the way in a wide range of research and scientific innovation, breaking barriers, finding new ways to advance the transformation of food, land and water systems in a climate crisis. My name is Fiona Farrell and I lead CGIR's function that works to advance gender equity, diversity and inclusion, or GDI for short, in our global workplaces. We in the GDI function, we just recently celebrated our very first birthday. We were launched in January 2020 with a really clear mission to work with leadership and management and staff across CGIR to make sure that our workplaces are truly enabling and inclusive for our over 10,000 people around the world. Our goal is to make sure that diversity in all its dimensions is embraced and that everybody in our workplace is supported to reach their full potential. For us, this is not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. We know that diversity can bring the different perspectives and the innovation that we really need to deliver on our critical mission. The work of the GDI function is guided by CGIR's GDI Framework and Action Plan. If you'd like to learn more about these important documents, our Knowledge Hub and our guides and our GDI Matrix, for example, that holds us accountable for delivery on our goals set, can all be found by going to our GDI webpage. Among the many initiatives we've had the honour of supporting in 2020 has been the launch of the new employee-led resource group called WIRES, or Women in Research and Science. WIRES brings together all those in our global community who are seeking to support our incredible women scientists, providing them with this supportive and safe space to learn and to grow and to advance. Today's event follows on closely from the official launch of WIRES on the 21st of January. Today, we're recognizing the significant contributions of women scientists by showcasing a sample of their exciting and innovative work. As we begin our 13-hour journey, we're reminding you of a few housekeeping rules. I know that our WorldFish colleagues will go through those details in a moment, but at a very minimum level, we invite you to submit your questions and comments via the Q&A box and to reach out to Thomas if you have any technical difficulties. We also invite you to join WIRES using the contact details that you see on the slide on the right-hand side. It's now my great pleasure to welcome the speakers for our very first Power Hour, who are coming from WorldFish. Handing over to you now, Tana. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona, for the introduction to this marathon event. And greetings from Penang, Malaysia to everyone. I'm the Executive Director for Strategy, Innovation and Communications at WorldFish, and I will be moderating today's event on behalf of WorldFish. For those of you who are not familiar with WorldFish, we are an international nonprofit research and innovation organization creating, advancing, and translating aquatic food system science into scalable solutions for healthy people and planet. For the past 40 years, our research, data, evidence, and insights have shaped practices, policies, and investment decisions to help end hunger and advance sustainable development in low and middle income countries. We are part of One CGIR, and we have a presence in 20 countries across Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, with 460 staff members representing 30 nationalities. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Gareth Johnson, the Director General of WorldFish, who will be giving the opening remarks and set the scene for us. Over to you, Gareth.
Thanks, Tana. Fabulous to be here. What an event. Very thrilled that WorldFish has the opportunity to kick off this marathon 13-hour event. And thanks, Fiona, for the introductions and echo very much your words there. This is an event that's showcasing the work of women scientists and their work in the CGIR. It's a fantastic way to recognize, celebrate to champion CGI women scientists and strengthen our connections through this amazing world's largest agriculture research and innovation network, and that's the CGIR. Women are essential to achieve our shared One CGI mission to deliver science and innovation that transforms food, land, and water systems in a climate crisis. On International Day of Women and Girls in Science, we must take a moment to reflect on the incredible diversity of perspectives women bring to our scientific endeavour to end hunger and all forms of malnutrition by 2030. In the face of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and also in a global climate crisis. However, while important for awareness raising, recognising and promoting the work of women in science, it can't be limited to just today. We can't just do this today. It must be lived every day. And despite making out more than half of the world's population, only 28% of researchers globally are women. This, in my view, is alarming in terms of how we can solve the complex challenges of our times, with many women still missing a seat in science, both in the field, practicing research, and at the decision-making table. We know that women working in the field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, known collectively as STEM, are poorly represented in leadership positions, publish less, and often receive less pay. Nearly equal numbers of men and women achieve bachelor's and master's degree in STEM-related topics, but we start to lose women in research careers from the PhD stage onwards through to the highest levels of management. And the quality and relevance of our science is quite simply paying for it. In my long career as both a research scientist and scientist in management, I've worked alongside both men and women in many different research teams. I've seen how science and innovation are enriched by the diverse ideas, perspectives, and experiences that women bring to the table. I've seen how the diverse teams approach challenges from different angles. Women's ideas, views, leadership style, and problem-solving approaches enrich scientific discourse and collaboration, and this produces better solutions, better decisions, and better results for both men and women. I'm also aware that women in science are often subject of both unconscious and overt bias from men, and these biases, often manifested in sexism and misogyny, are part of many institutional practices, policies and organisation culture that stand in the way of women in science and in gender equality in the workplace. I'm also aware of the unfair penalties women incur on a personal, professional and economic level as a result of men's implicit and overt biases. And let me tell you, there may be no meaningful scientific and societal progress when half of the world is held back from achieving her potential. We all must recognise that our scientific institutions, including our CGI workplaces, were not really originally created to nurture gender equality and diversity, but we're learning, and it's up to all of us, men and women, to work collectively and proactively to change that. Women have multiple identities, abilities, and aspirations. They deserve workplaces that are inclusive, safe, and respectful, where women can speak up and know that they'll be heard. If policies and practices promote the equal participation of women, our workplaces will be simply more diverse, and the results of our scientific work will be more comprehensive and more relevant. Diverse research groups that include women are at the heart of good science. They are more creative, more agile, more resilient. They are simply more successful. Research also suggests that institutional performance is positively associated with gender parity in the workplace. Therefore, including and promoting women in science is not a women's issue, it is an issue for every single one of us. If we want to improve our science to meet the complex challenges of the 21st century, it's up to every woman, every man, every scientific institution, every business, funder, and government to work together towards gender equality. Too often, initiatives to boost women in science see gender equality as simply a women's issue. I say it's a science issue. The culture of science has to change. And we require a strategy to achieve this diverse, inclusive, and equal culture. I encourage both men and women at all levels and areas to join the new employee resource group on women in research and science known as WIRES. WIRES members come from all across the CGIAR, united by the goal to promote the work and achievements of women in scientific research and innovation. Our employee resource groups like WIRES help connect employees across the geographies, as we can see today with the marathon event, disciplines and structures, helping to make a workplace more inclusive. Now, achieving the transition to one CGIAR requires a focus on gender, equality, diversity and inclusion. So please, if you've not done so already, as Fiona mentioned at the head of this meeting, visit the WIRES website and view our shared action plan. Moving towards meaningful equality requires an equal effort from both men and women. When it comes to CGIAR and its work, male colleagues must champion gender equality and diversity because it benefits science and sustainable development. Excuse me. Men must recognise and support and create opportunities for women in science from field to management level. They must encourage their female peers to apply for jobs, promotions, funding, and to share their ideas. To improve our science, we must achieve gender equality in the workplace. To achieve gender equality in the workplace, we need men alongside their female colleagues to step up and play a more proactive role in driving meaningful change. In 2018, when I took on the role of Director General at WorldFish, I had a personal goal to improve women's participation in science. With the executive team, we set up some measurable goals to improve gender, diversity and inclusion in our organisation. I'm really proud to say that we've achieved gender parity in our executive team, and women make up 60% of our science leaders and managers. Also, the number of women scientists across all our research and innovation work has increased to 42% of our research teams. There's still more to do. We have made a specific commitment to gender inclusion and diversity as a core part of our organisational transformation agenda laid out in our new WorldFish 2030, I think it's decided, research and innovation strategy. Gender, diversity and inclusion are more than just words to us. They are fundamental principles guiding how we build our teams, cultivate leaders and how we do our scientific work. We recognise it takes people with different ideas, talents, disciplines and backgrounds to make our work stand out. Women are an important part of this equation, a fundamental part. Now, COVID-19 has cost lives, it's sickened millions and thrust the global economy into recession, threatening progress made toward the Sustainable Development Agenda. And we need diversity of ideas and solutions, and we need them now. At WorldFish, we're committed to aquatic foods for healthy people and planet. Aquatic foods offer a life-changing opportunity to boost the nutrition and food security and livelihoods of women and men. 1 in every 2 workers in aquatic food systems are women. We must mirror this diversity when doing research and creating innovations that will benefit these women and their families. Inclusive action will save lives and livelihoods now and create a foundation for a post-pandemic world that is stronger, more equal and more resilient. Imagine where we'll be if women have the equal ability to study, to share their ideas, to lead at the same standard as men. Imagine where we'll be if we do not have to battle sexism and misogyny in the workplace, if women simply focus on science and innovation. It's up to all of us to champion women in science. And with that, Tana, I will pass back to you and let you introduce some of the WorldFish's greatest minds improving the world through research. Thank you.
Many thanks, Gareth, for sharing these inspiring words and also a call to action today. I agree that making the workplace a fair level playing field for women means better outcomes for all. Gender equality in the scientific research and innovation organization is not only just the right thing to do, it's actually linked to a number of benefits at organizational and societal levels. There are numerous studies out there that show how workplace gender parity is associated with improved national productivity and economic growth, increased organizational performance, improved institutional reputation and ability to attract talent and retain world-class researchers and employees. So when it comes to CGIAR and its work, male colleagues must champion gender equality and diversity because it benefits science and sustainable development for both men and women everywhere. So let us find out what I mean by this by hearing from our wonderful panel of trailblazing scientists at WorldFish who lead groundbreaking research and innovation work to leverage the power of aquatic food systems for healthy people and a sustainable planet, now and for the future. It is my honor and my privilege to introduce to you Dr. Shakuntala Thilsted, who's the global lead for nutrition and public health in aquatic food systems at WorldFish. She has over 25 years of experience in research in global food security and nutrition in low-income countries and was recently appointed the Vice Chair for the Advancing Equitable Livelihoods Action Track in the run-up to the 2020 UN Food Systems Summit. She also represents WorldFish and CGIAR in the high-level panel of experts on food security and nutrition, and is also one of the global experts advising the high panel for a sustainable ocean economy. Welcome, Dr. Shakuntala.
Thank you, Tanu. And I'm happy to be here with all of you and also with all our colleagues from the CGIAR.
Thanks, Shakuntala. Next up, we have Dr. Rose Basita, who is an aquaculture and fish geneticist scientist at WorldFish, who attained her PhD in aquaculture genetics from James Cook University with the Center for Sustainable Tropical Fisheries and Aquaculture. She's a global scientist currently based in Zambia with research experience in Africa, Asia, and Australia. Welcome, Dr. Rose.
Thanks very much, Tana. I'm happy to be here this morning. Looking forward to the engagement. Thank you. Over to you, Tana.
Joining us. And then next, we're going to Dr. Jillian Tutuo-Waite, who's a research fellow on value chains and nutrition. Nutritionist by profession with extensive experience in public health research and nutrition-related policy interventions for the prevention of obesity and non-communicable diseases in the Pacific. She has led work around the assessment and monitoring of food environments in the Pacific, as well as social-cultural influences on dietary transitions in the region. Welcome, Dr. Jillian.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be part of the panel. Thank you.
Next up, we're going to go to the UK, to Nisha Maraha, who's an intern with the Sustainable Aquaculture Program at WorldFish, a graduate of UC Davis, and she has degrees in biological systems engineering. Welcome, Nisha.
Thank you, Tana. Very happy to be here.
And finally, but also quite importantly, we're going to Dr. Suresh Rajendran, who's a research and project coordinator for one of WorldFish's largest and complex projects on agribusiness and rural transformation in the state of Assam in India. He's an aquaculture expert with 32 years of experience in the transfer of technology for small-scale aquaculture development. Welcome, Dr. Suresh.
Thanks, Tana. Very happy to join this event.
Great. So before we get into it, let's run a quick poll to see and engage a little bit with the audience and get a sense for who they are and where they're joining us from. So the first question that I hope will come onto the screen with the help of the technical team that I have for the audience today is to just let us know, where are you joining us from? So we'll give you a couple of moments to fill out the questions. And then the second question, and also to see whether you were actually paying attention to the keynote speech of Dr. Johnston, is to tell us, what do you think, what's the percentage of women researchers globally? Is it 73%, 14%, 28%, or 5%? So maybe like a few more seconds. I hope everybody's able to look at the screen and find the poll questions. So perhaps the technical support team can kind of reveal the answers. Okay, wow, that's very good. So I'm impressed that, you know, we've got also like a lot of people joining us from Africa. we're starting this sort of marathon CGI event on sort of the side of the world, which is in Asia. So obviously lots of people joining us from Asia and the Pacific, and hope that, you know, more people from Europe and the Americas will be able to hopefully see the recording of this. And with regards to the answer, so the correct answer for this question is 28%, and I'm very glad that, you know, we were paying attention to this question and to this important statistic, because as Dr. Johnston noted in his keynote speech, it's something, you know, that all of us need to engage and do to help improve it. Okay, so I'm going to go without further ado to Dr. Shakuntala. Dr. Shakuntala is a global leading scientist who are championing aquatic foods at the highest levels of the Sustainable Development Agenda, nutrition agenda, and also in response to the global call to action for a food systems transformation. Can you please tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing and why that is important?
Thank you, Tanu. Aquatic foods have an essential role to play in transforming global food systems to achieve multiple sustainable development goals. My research is uncovering the importance of diverse aquatic foods, and the benefits they have to nutrition, health, livelihoods, and economics in low and middle income countries. My research also gives voice to women's perspective on aquatic food systems, which is crucial for our understanding of the benefits that aquatic foods have on nutrition and health. This work is important to mainstream aquatic food systems in the global and national development narrative. Thank you.
As a senior woman in a sort of career that sort of spans several decades, would you think that there has been progress to include women in science?
Very much so, Tanu. And if I can give from my own experience, when I started with research in fish in Bangladesh many years ago, I was at the University of Copenhagen. And when I would come to Bangladesh and work in the fields, I would be working with those who work with producing fish. And very often I would be the only female in the field with many men. And from the communities, the men of the communities would come and join us and interact with us as to what we were doing and how our work can benefit them. Now, when I go to the field, I'm not the only female. There are many other female scientists, researchers, field assistants with me. And what's very nice that I really enjoy is that the women and the girls of the communities, they come and join us and they ask questions as to what we are doing, why we are here, how did we get here? And even some girls say, oh, I would like to do this when I grow up. What should I do? So that's very interesting.
It's interesting what you say, because I think that touches upon an experience that is quite common to women, not just in science, but I think in many sort of other organizations. And really my hope and aspiration is that, you know, women will no longer remark on the fact that they're the only ones in the room. So thanks for sharing that with us. But I probably would say that despite the progress that we have seen, there are still challenges. So what can research organizations like WorldFish and then, you know, the other organizations that are part of the One CGIAR community, can they do to overcome these challenges?
Well, firstly, we must recognize that even today, in most societies and organizations, also the CGIAR, men largely occupy the seats of power. And that means that men control both human and financial resources. One reason many initiatives to progress gender equality have not delivered in the past is that they have focused solely on engaging and changing women using initiatives that have been led by women. Such an approach fails to recognize the site of where the power sits in the organization. And it places the onus on women to fix the problem and it means that any failures are then laid at the doors of the woman, rather than it being identified as systematic deficiencies which should be fixed by all in the organizations, including the men who sit with the power. So forward-thinking organizations not only want to engage with men, but also increase men's effectiveness in driving gender equality at work. And the first critical step for this, I think, is convincing men that there are problems with the current state of affairs and that men are needed to get behind gender equality efforts. It's essential that they understand the problems caused by gender bias and how these problems can keep back their organizations and hinder progress, as we have heard from Dr. Gareth Johnson. So senior leaders must play an important role in supporting men's increasing engagement in workplace gender equality. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, Shakuntala. I will now turn to Rose, which is a rising star in the field of fish genetics. Dr. Rose, can you tell us a little bit about your research work at WorldFish and what led you to pursue a research career in this area?
Thanks very much, Tana. Like you said, I'm based, I'm an aquaculture scientist in fish genetics based in Zambia, promoting aquaculture and fish farming within Zambia and also the other countries where I do offer technical support like Malawi, the DRC, in Eastern Africa and other areas. I think my contribution in aquaculture is very critical, given that the particular industry is the fastest growing food production industry and provides opportunities for both men and women. Of course, my key areas of research do border on improved fish seed with use of genetic tools, but ultimately affect the feed and also production and marketing and profitability in the sector. We see that aquaculture is critical in advancing sustainable development globally, but also in the African region where women and children and other people need fish and other aquatic food organisms that are important and quite nutrient rich. What prompted me to have this career, I think I always say this, it's the role models that I saw within the field of science, both within my family, but also elsewhere, women scientists and men scientists that had made it through and contributing great deals in the area of food security and poverty alleviation. So that passion for me to contribute to changing lives drove me into a science career. Quite demanding, but the rewards that come through keep me going every day. Yeah, I hope I've answered for now. Over to you, Tana.
Oh, thanks, Rose. Yes, absolutely. I think you touched upon a really important issue there with regards to role models, and you're right. I think the more we see and visualize women in science, I think we can hope to inspire more young women to sort of join a research career and pursue research careers in their futures. But in your experience, I have a question. What are some of the unique challenges that women in science face in Africa? And in your experience, what has been that one thing that's been absolutely critical to your success as a woman in science so far?
Yeah, I think having also sort of a global exposure, the challenges to women scientists in Africa are also experienced elsewhere. But we also need to recognize that Africa has gone a long way in having high numbers of women scientists in the STEM. I think it's about 30% of workers in STEM are women, compared to, for example, a lower percentage of about 19% in West and Southern Asia. I think governments and high institutions have played a big role in providing an enabling environment, and there is still more that is desired to see that women are given that environment to provide their role and contribution to the continuity of science, particularly in agricultural production. For me, what has really pushed me in science is confronting domestic expectations among women, having a supportive family. I look at my family not as a hindrance to science, but it's been supportive and pushing my career forward, my husband and now the children as well. But as I mentioned earlier, having supportive supervisors, I've had male supervisors, and somehow they fostered me as an individual and pushed me and not discriminated. And again, that brings up the point where it's both men and women that need to bring forward this diversity and continuity and sustainability of women in science. I also mentioned about women role models that are globally highlighted, both with families and without families. So balancing those two for me has caused me to see a future within science. I think over to you, Tana. It's been a range of things, and I think I've just highlighted a few that have pushed me in this very demanding career, but then rewarding to see the results thereof. Thanks very much, Tana. Over to you.
Thank you, Rose. Indeed, I think the range of issues that you've touched upon are quite complex. And I think in terms of the complexity of also the interventions that are required to sort of promote women in science and also gender equality in society, from structural kind of interventions with regards to the role that governments and institutions play, but also, you know, at a personal level, the support that we need from our families and husbands and partners and children and so forth, maybe even also women to women sort of networks, to also the role of male champions in terms of really promoting and mentoring and supporting women in the workplace so that they can reach the highest peaks of their career. So thanks for kind of really capturing that complexity in your response, Rose. I will now turn to Jillian Tutu, who's the Value Chains and Nutrition Research Fellow with WorldFish in the Pacific. So Dr. Jillian, many people, especially women and young children, are suffering from malnutrition and poor health across island communities in the Pacific. Can you tell us a little bit more about your work and how it is contributing to healthier and sustainable diets for people and the planet?
Thank you, Tana. Okay, thank you so much. So I work in the Solomon Islands and Vanuatu. These are two countries in the South Pacific. I'm pretty much involved in researching the role of fish in healthy diets and how to increase the availability, accessibility, and consumption of nutrient-rich fish by communities, with particular emphasis on women and children in the first 1,000 days of life. My work complements other work in our center to scale innovations in fisheries to improve the production. I would say that the nutrition, we are engaging in the nutrition sensitive approaches in fishery to do our work here, to see the positive impacts on dietary changes for these women and children. So as we all know, that the nutrition sensitive approach are basically those approaches that addresses basic determinants sort of enabling environment to malnutrition, as well as underlying determinants, including food security, food safety nets, gender empowerment, and also immediate causes of malnutrition like nutrient intake, which is the case. We're trying to promote the consumption of fish, aquatic foods, I would say, to ensure that micronutrients such as nutrients such as iron, zinc, and calcium are available in the diets of those in the first 1,000 days of life. Just a little bit brief on the work that we do in these two countries. As you all know, we're in the Pacific, we're surrounded by the ocean, but the sad thing is, although we are heavily reliant on agriculture and small-scale fisheries for livelihoods, our per capita of fish consumption is quite high nationally. Our malnutrition rates are also very high. And there are vulnerable groups like the pregnant, lactating women and young children are not consuming aquatic foods. So in terms of data, it's alarming. 1 in 10 are undernourished, 1 in 3 children are stunted, and micronutrient deficiency are prevalent in young children. Dietary diversity is low. So our focus in this nutrition sensitive approach in fishery is trying to increase this increasing dietary diversity at the same time improving nutrient adequacy, and at the outcome is nutrition status. But not only that, at the same time sustainably managing the use of aquatic foods. So with that, we are pretty much conducting researches around the role of fish and understanding what are the constraints, the opportunities that helps that should be helping us to solve this problem. And this research pretty much comes up with helped us to identify targeted interventions such as behavior change materials, films, training of trainers for women and men. We both include both gender, and focusing on fish and how we could promote the use of that. And throughout the whole process, we are involving both gender. And I think that's the key role in our work here in the Pacific throughout the whole process, so that we could reap the positive outcome in terms of our work here. Thank you, Tana, back to you.
Thanks, Jillian. I'm pretty sure that your work on nutrition sensitive approaches and value chains and sort of the focus on women and children in the Pacific would be of great interest to other scientists who are looking and exploring similar issues of critical importance in other regions of the globe, such as Asia, Africa, or Latin America. So my question to you is, how do you stay connected with your peers, both women and men in science, but also science and policy networks that are absolutely critical to your career as a researcher? And is it harder or easier now that we are all being forced to live in this new context of virtual life and work that's been forced on us from the COVID-19 pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Well, being from the Pacific, sort of an isolated a bit from the rest of the world, that's really clear. But I think at a personal level, I think keeping connected through my work, interacting with others across the centers and headquarters, at sometimes, although it's challenging, as at a personal level, it is important to, stay in contact. If it means writing an email, updating your mentors, this is important. And also having, I would say, having a strong team around you here at the regional office is strong, and I'm appreciative. I do have a strong team here at the region and across other centers as well. The other thing is to engage with stakeholders. It's very important. I think that's vital to the success of most of our activities and the communities that we work with. The other thing at a personal level is to be visible. So visible in terms of your work. And I think this opportunity gives that visibility of the work in the Pacific that we do, and sharing with other ladies, women out there, emerging women scientists. It's something that I think it's really helpful. To connect with other women who work in other regional offices, I feel that it's important to provide opportunities for women. If being mentored by a senior mentor or mentoring younger women, so give the opportunity to women to do that, and keep the network going. There's a lot of network going on with our organization, and it's better to keep it going with a clear intent, a common area of engagement, and showing passion with what we do, and the connection and the networking that we do. And I think last but not the least, there's quite a lot, but just to mention a few here, is to have a strong lead and driver to drive our initiative and network across the centers in the regions. Thank you, Tana.
Thanks, Jillian. And actually, I do hope that as a result of this 13-hour marathon event across the CGIAR, women and men who are participating and attending and following this event will be able to generate more connections in a much larger network, and share ideas, exchange ideas, talk about the work that they're doing, and hopefully find opportunities for new areas of collaboration, particularly in context of the new CGIAR CGIAR research and innovation strategy. So that's quite important. And speaking of mentoring young women and also connecting to people far and wide, I'm going to go now to the United Kingdom, where Nisha is one of our interns at WorldFish. She's working alongside several of our senior scientists and partners in the private sector, exploring a new food frontier that is associated with alternative foods developed from innovative cell and plant-based technologies. So welcome, Nisha. My question to you is that you represent obviously a new generation of women coming up in science and working, more importantly, in the field of disruptive technology that may dramatically transform the food we eat in the future. Can you tell us a little bit about your internship with WorldFish?
Sure, thank you, Tana. First, I just want to say, as a young scientist, I feel extremely lucky to be involved in this research and also with the CG research program on fish and agri-food systems. In my experience, I've found that similar research positions like to WorldFish's internship program are not easy to come by with only a master's degree. This internship program really, I think, encourages the involvement of young scientists from a lot of diverse backgrounds, and it helps us develop professionally and can also put us on the path towards a PhD and continued involvement with the CGIAR and other similar development organizations. I think one really essential part of my internship, especially since it's been remote due to COVID, this has been touched on by some of our other speakers today, but it's really been having strong and reliable mentors, whether they be male or female, but for them to be very supportive. In my time at WorldFish, I've had really fantastic mentors, and I think that they've done a great job encouraging and valuing my active involvement in the research process. I've also had the opportunity to collaborate with other researchers within WorldFish, but also researchers from other CG centers and our other academic partners. And I've been exposed to many intelligent women, like some of the ones here today, who are really leading their fields, which has been very exciting to witness and also to interact with them. And I think that all of this together, this inclusivity that I think WorldFish and the CG Centers really foster is quite enabling, and it's really encouraging to me as I pursue my career into research.
Thanks, Nisha. This sounds fantastic. It looks like your internship is going quite well, and I wish you every success in your career. And I hope that WorldFish gets to keep you even after the internship. But my next question to you is, since you're working in this really exciting area of the new WorldFish research and innovation strategy, why do you think it's important to ensure equal access to women and girls when it comes to new and innovative technologies?
Thanks for the question, Tana. I think we can make a whole webinar about this particular topic, but okay. I think when women and girls have equal access and control also of technology, there's really so many vast potential benefits. I think when women and girls have access and they also have a proficiency with the technology, we can help shape strategy and the narratives. And really participate meaningfully in science, in aquatic food systems, in agricultural food systems, in sort of any sector where the technology is being applied. And I wish it did, but unfortunately, we all know this doesn't happen automatically. So these new revolutions in science and technology really have to be planned and I think developed with the intent that their design and their impact are fully inclusive. I think that there's the other side of this also, where we need to be very diligent in preventing and mitigating risks, especially when it comes to sort of gender differentiated risks. So these risks to women can take shape in many forms. Sometimes in the forms of direct threats, so we see sort of online violence or harassment, but then there's also many other unintended consequences that we need to be prepared to address or hopefully address before they happen, these consequences that can really reinforce or exacerbate inequality. So I think that moving forward, we need to be really aware of this and make it really central to our mission that we have sort of living policies and systems that guide education, research and development, outreach programs, and data collection and monitoring that really challenge stereotypes and have kind of gender equality and equity at their core.
Thank you, Nisha. You are wise beyond your years, and I will not be surprised, you know, in the near future and distant future to sort of see you become a real powerhouse of a woman in science. And we're very, very sort of happy that you're doing your internship with us. Okay, so now let me turn to Dr. Surendran, who in my view exemplifies the perfect gender equality champion. So Dr. Surendran, you currently coordinate one of the most exciting and complex research projects on agribusiness and rural transformation across the state of Assam in India, which links the work of various CGIAR partner centers such as WorldFish, IRRI, ILRI, and SIP. Women, I understand, are a main target of this project as an important change agent for food systems transformation and also transforming agribusiness and rural economies. So in your experience as a project coordinator and researcher, what happens when women are included, when their voices are heard and their hopes and aspirations are reflected in the critical decisions that are made from household to national level?
Thanks, Tana. You know, in India, rural development programs we do in agriculture and allied sectors focus the role and involvement of more and more women to participate and benefit. Even as you see in the World Bank funded POT project in Assam, which I am currently engaged along with the CG centers like IRRI, ILRI, and the CIP, we have a target to include around 30% participation of women in all our activities. But in fisheries, if you see, it is mostly a male-dominated profession for a long time. Women, actually, they were involved mostly in post-harvesting as well as in marketing activities to a certain level. But in the recent aquatic food production system transformation, the shift from the fishing activities to aquaculture is now providing enormous opportunities for engaging women. So over a period, I could see more and more women participating in almost all the activities related to aquaculture, in production, in marketing, in processing, and making their voices heard. They're also in most of these producer organizations, in the FPOs, farmer producer companies. Now we see their representation is there. Even in the open water fisheries, what we are doing is we are seeing that in the field development committees that are formed to manage the activities, both technical and governance, we see that more women are participating. So over a period, we see more and more women are participating in most of the rural development activities in India. Another recent development is that the formation of self-help groups of women in India, particularly in the rural areas. They are very much involved in agriculture and allied activities with both technical support as well as with financial support from different agencies. They are really empowered technically, financially, as well as socially, which is really encouraging sign over a period for rural women empowerment, as I see in agriculture sector. Thank you. Over to you, Tana.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suresh. This is so exciting to hear, actually. And sort of going back to Rose's point early with regards to sort of aquatic food systems and fisheries and aquaculture in particular being one of the fastest food production sectors in the world, I think it's quite critical that, you know, we leverage that in a way that we can include women, but also make sure that women benefit from that process and from those developments. So in your view, what can we do to support and encourage more male champions like you to increase, you know, participation of women in research, but also women in science and gender equality in the workplace?
Yeah, I basically think that diverse and inclusive campaigns aimed specifically at men in order to educate, support, and male champions of gender equality in science and in the workplace initiatives are very, very critical. So I can give certain examples. Reverse mentoring is one. Research already shows that men who have been mentored by women leaders are more aware of the gender equalities than men who had not got that opportunity. So we need to have that reverse mentoring happening in science as well as in workplaces. We may also arrange presentations by inspiring male champions of gender equality. You see, courageous men who champion gender inclusion and challenge the status quo must be celebrated and encouraged to share their experience and the benefits of gender equality in the workplace with other men. Networks for peer coaching is also very, very important. Groups of men, they can meet to share their tips, advices, they can share their experiences in their teams and within the organization to create a very more equitable workplace. And also there is a need to organize some leadership workshops. We have to engage both men and women leaders in dialogue about what can be done to achieve gender equality. That is most important. So these are all some of the examples through which we can bring in more, we can encourage more male champions of gender equality, both in science and the workplace in the days to come. Over to you, Tana. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh. I really like your practical advice, and I think we need to sort of reflect on maybe how we can kind of take it into action. I particularly like your idea of sort of reverse mentoring and sort of kind of putting together like men and women and sort of having men actually being mentored by women to sort of really increase their awareness of some of these issues, but also their ability in a sense to take action in the forward. So that's really, really interesting. I'm aware that we are sort of running out of time for our session today. So we have only a few minutes. So I'm going to head over to sort of look at our questions and answers box. There's quite a few questions that are being posed. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take them all today. But maybe I can sort of pick up a couple very quickly to sort of see who may want to take those from our panel or even from the DG. So I think just to tie it into what Suresh was talking about, I'm going to go to this question from Sajida, who's a gender specialist at WorldFish Bangladesh project. Her question is, how can we reward and appreciate positive male champions to support and promote females in being successful in the scientific field? So I think we already heard from our panelists quite a few ideas, but perhaps if there is somebody that wants to offer another perspective or add to what we've already heard here. Maybe Jillian, would you like to add something to that? Jillian, can you hear us? Okay, I think maybe I'll go over to Shakuntala.
Thank you, Tana. Well, if I talk from my own experience with WorldFish, I do think I see an openness of our male leaders wanting to include women and being vocal about it, and being vocal about it in groups with other males and with also women in the organization. However, I do think we can do more about this and give more space to have these conversations and give more space to discuss the issues, to suggest the solutions, and then to follow up. If we come up with great ideas about solutions as a diverse team, then how do we make sure that they are put into place and that there's some follow-up to see what we're achieving with these? Very often we leave the room saying, oh, fantastic idea, and nothing happens.
Yes, so that follow-up is absolutely critical and important. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. So maybe this can go to either Rose or to Suresh. What could be responsible, says Emmanuel Alamu, for the low participation of women in fisheries business? So maybe perhaps Suresh, can you share your ideas with us?
As I was discussing, Tana, this very interesting question that everywhere that we find low participation of women, mainly as you see, historically, fishing was a male-dominated profession. That's what I was telling. So the hard work that they have to do in fishing restricted the participation of more women into fishing as an activity. But later, they were mostly engaged post-harvesting activities only in many places. But slowly now when aquaculture is happening, just like agriculture, which is taken up by many women, there is always a possibility that we are encouraging more women to participate, and that is happening world over. So we need to build the capacity of women, build the confidence of women that aquaculture is no more different from agriculture. It is farming on land, it is farming on water, it is just chest deep or 5 feet of water. Whatever men can do in aquaculture can be done by women. So that needs confidence, and we need to show real model wherein women are able to perform most of their aquaculture activities, not only engaging themselves in the post-harvesting operations and marketing activities. They should also enter into production activities. We have demonstrated in many places, and really it is going to bring a huge change in the days to come. Seeing is believing. Seeing many women involved in aquaculture will change the scenario in the days to come. Thank you. It's very nice.
Thank you, Suresh. And maybe just very quickly over to Rose. Are there any ideas that you'd like to share with us on that same question as to what do we think inhibit women's participation in fisheries and aquaculture, for that matter, and in aquatic food systems in general, from your experience?
I think from my experience, like Shiraj has said, that it's that initial stereotype of male dominance. But I think sensitization and getting to know the needs of women in these particular sectors is very important. Like holding meetings for aquaculture farmers very early in the morning excludes women because of some responsibilities they have. So just as even the partners and stakeholders get to know the needs of men and women, then we tailor them to get their involvement even more. So I think that's what I can say, because Suresh did mention all the other barriers. Yeah. Thank you, Tana. I'm just looking at the forward-looking. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Rose. Unfortunately, that is all that we have the time for today at WorldFish for this session. I'd like to thank all of our panelists and also the Director General for sharing their experience and their thoughts, and also some critical insights and some practical advice as well in terms of what we can do to celebrate, promote, and include more women in science, but also make our workplace a lot more diverse in terms of women's participation. I wish you all a wonderful day. I hope you felt inspired, and I hope that you've taken something away to work on. Stay healthy, stay safe, and over to you, Fiona.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tana. Thank you, Gareth and Shakuntala and Rose, Gillian, Nisha, Suresh. It was a really enjoyable and very enlightening session. Well done to all. I only wish we had more time with you. I feel like some of these conversations are just getting started, but we do truly appreciate your commitment and the time you've taken to be with us today. I know that many of you online may have questions we just simply couldn't fit into the time frame, but don't worry. As Tana said, we hope this is just the start of more interesting discussions to come. So please do feel free, if you're online, to reach out to our WorldFish speakers and continue the conversation after today's event. And now, speaking of continuing conversations,